Flash Gordon is still alive.
Alive?
I feel a little bit sheepish when people say, oh, he wrote Flash Gordon. I don't know. If they're not hip, they might just be thinking of it as a failed movie.
She's not getting me.
Don't use your mouth. Use your brain.
Because, I mean, I understand the movie, it's what they call a cult classic. But one of the definitions of a cult classic is that the cult are not people who buy movie tickets, generally speaking. It has its rabid fans who like it, but not the general populace.
Are your men on the right pills?
If you could have advertised, come see a future cult classic.
Maybe you should execute that trainer.
30 years before its time. The very small audience that would have appreciated that would have gone ape. They would have liked it so much. I was very close to Dino in those days. And it just came up casually. And actually, he'd been a great fan of the thing. It was very big in Italy. And he had a bound copy of Flash Gordon, of the comics. And I know he'd been interested in it for a long time, he told me. And he had somebody very unlikely working on it. And it hadn't worked out, so I said, why don't I do it? Why don't we do it? He said, fine. I certainly was given the big bound comic, but that was in Italian. It was in Italian, but you don't have to translate it much. I'd read Batman, and I knew it should be done campy, so to speak, should not be done very seriously. And Flash Gordon, the same way.
Bring me the boar worms.
No! Not the boar worms!
I'd seen the comic, I'd read it, and it was on the radio, and I knew it. Ming the Merciless and Dr. Zarkov.
Flash. I'm sure that's Dr. Hans Zarkov.
Who?
But they were part of cultural knowledge rather than knowing them. And so it just sprang. Again, I'm not complimenting myself for being brilliant or anything, but there was no doubt of how to do it.
What are you doing to me?
We are going to empty your memory, as we might empty your pockets.
Some things of Flash Gordon I remember very sharply, other things not at all. But I don't remember having a single meeting with anybody except Dino. In my opinion, it could have used some criticism. There's no question the script would have been better.
This Ming's a psycho.
This Ming is a psycho.
Who said that?
Even though it may sound a dream, just say, go off and write it and we'll shoot it, is not a terribly good idea. That's my considered opinion after years of screwing around in this stuff. He just said, do it the same way when I did King Kong with him. He called me one day, I was living in Aspen, said, hey, Lorenzo, we do a King Kong. I said, sounds good to me. And so that was it.
You look great.
It's the eye makeup. I hope I remember the trick when I wake up.
Every script of Dino's was translated into Italian. We had this woman that translated for him.
Come along, Fellini.
She was a very bad translator, I was told by people. Her English was quite bad, and her Italian was bad, too. She came to the house to pick up some pages in Nantucket. And she walked into the house and said, oh, what a beautiful dog. And in the living room, and my wife was there and said, my God, it was a cat. And said, you mean that you're the person translating Lorenzo's scripts? And Dino always said that he didn't want too good a translation. He said, I don't want to be fooled by the nicer words. I want to know the story. I want to know what happens on the page. But he was totally independent. He had his own financing, so nobody really told him what to do. He said, this is it, and they gave him some. Obviously, people at Universal read the script, and nobody said it was awful, obviously, or something would have happened. And I never got much suggestion. As far as I was concerned, it was just the adventures of Flash and his girlfriend. There was no nonsense as to how they got there or why. They were flying over and they happened to be forced down where there was a rocket ready to take off. If you accept that, you have no problem with anything.
Did your flying lessons get as far as landing?
I was afraid you'd ask that!
In other words, if it bothers you that they happen to be flying over a rocket made by Dr. Zarkov, why then this movie isn't for you. But otherwise, that's how they got there, and that's how it started. Much later on, in London, when we were shooting in England, this is the type of crazy thing that would happen with Dino. Out of the blue, he said, Lorenzo, maybe somebody have some ideas, because there were confusions going on in the shooting because of the sets and everything. It was all terribly confused, which shows in the movie maybe partly, it gives it some of its charm, I might say, because it's really off the wall.
What the hell's going... Ah!
He said, Bob Guccione is in London, famous publisher of Penthouse. And he said, Bob Guccione maybe have some good ideas. Go over and see Bob Guccione. So I dutifully went over to Bob Guccione's house in London, where he was occupied with a couple of Penthouse pets. Anyway, offhand, so Bob Guccione had a few ideas. I don't remember what they were, but that was the extent of it. It was idiotic and insane, the idea of going to Bob Guccione for ideas. But it went ahead, and the next thing was to cast it. I seem to remember that Sam Jones was on a game show that Dino's mother saw and said, "That's the person." So Dino hired him.
I've got to rescue my friends and save the Earth.
It's pretty risky telling that to the Emperor's daughter.
You couldn't get anybody more absurd. I mean, Sam Jones saving the Earth, give me a break.
Flash? What are you setting there?
That's how long Earth has left. Oh, my God.
And that's the essence of the movie. To that extent, yes, he was perfectly cast.
We owe everything to Flash. Hail Flash!
Mike Hodges was a smart guy, and he wasn't known for comics particularly. But anyway, he was signed to do it. He was a good, serious, very well thought of director. He was able to get these extremely good supporting English actors. I mean, distinguished actors.
Welcome back from the grave. I knew you were up to something, though I confess I hadn't thought of necrophilia.
And so the small parts were extremely well cast. There's no question about it. And Mike did a very good job in all this. We got on very well. We'd drink in the evenings and say, how do we get into this? Dino had great reverence for this designer and always wanted to work with him. And so it was a great coup for Dino when he got Danilo. And Danilo had more influence over the script and the production than the designer normally does. And Danilo doesn't talk English. I don't talk Italian. But we both talk French to some extent. And so my discussions with Danilo were in French, such as they were. And believe me, the set sometimes really didn't fit the script. The script would say there's a big tree branch you go out on, and the set would be an underground cavern. The consternation of Mike and everybody. And we said, Danilo, this isn't it. He'd say, well, this is what I want to do. This is the way I see it. And I said, but the script, and they said to me again in French, Lorenzo, je ne lis jamais les scripts. In other words, I never read the scripts. Danilo said, I don't read scripts. I've never read the script. I don't read scripts.
This place is a lunatic asylum.
The design of the picture, the look of the picture, is very much his. I mean, the Hawkman and all those things. The look of it's very surreal. That is the fun of the movie. This was after Star Wars, and Dino was obsessed with its success, which was astounding. And out of nowhere, in effect, because, I mean, it hadn't had any great advanced publicity. And I remember Dino said one day, he said, we run Star Wars, you got a copy of it. We see what to make of this movie, why everybody go see this movie. So we couldn't figure out. Star Wars had a certain amount of, I won't say realism, but I mean, it was treated as if it was really happening. And Flash Gordon never, in my opinion, appeared as if it actually was really taking place anywhere. I mean, Mongo was more than mythical. I mean, Mongo was straight out of an Italian comic book.
You obey, or you sacrifice your daughter.
And it was the tone of the thing. It's pretty silly. This is what makes it a cult classic.
Hail Ming.
I intended to make it fun because I could not take these things seriously. I have been denounced in fan magazines. There's a very serious cinema fantasy magazine, and once on its cover it had Lorenzo Semple Jr.'s hate mail. This was after Batman and Flash Gordon, that I hadn't taken these things seriously enough.
Oh, my God, this girl's really turning me on.
I didn't quite get that. Think it again.
Forget I thought it.
These comic cultists, a lot of them take their stuff very seriously. And I had treated it lightly. And I said that was my attitude towards this stuff.
My thanks to you.
Yeah? What for?
For giving a dumb old bird a second chance. Over the homing beam.
The movie was never intended to be anything but fun. And that's it, just fun.